My wedding day was supposed to be perfect. The June sunlight sparkled on the lakeside venue, white roses adorned every table, and Nathan, my handsome fiancé, waited for me at the altar. Everything was set for a dream come true. Then, during the reception speeches, my sister, Stephanie, grabbed the microphone. Her maid of honor dress shimmered as she smoothed it, a sly smile playing on her lips. And then she dropped the bomb. "I'm pregnant with Nathan's baby." The entire room fell silent. Champagne glasses froze midair, poised for a toast that would never come. I stood there in my $1,000 gown, watching my world collapse publicly, piece by agonizing piece. But here's the twist no one, especially not Stephanie or Nathan, expected. I smiled. Growing up, Stephanie, 3 years my junior, always knew how to command attention. While I meticulously followed rules, striving for validation through academic achievements, Stephanie broke every rule and was instantly forgiven. Our suburban Michigan home was a stage for our contrasting personalities. "Rebecca's our responsible one," my mother would proudly declare when I brought home straight A's. Yet, when Stephanie returned with mediocre grades and a charming tale of helping a friend, she'd receive the same proud smile. I worked twice as hard for half the recognition. Despite this dynamic, I loved my sister. We shared secrets in our matching twin beds, whispered about crushes, and defended each other against neighborhood bullies. There was an unspoken understanding. I would be the stable one, she the wild spirit. This balance worked until adulthood. After graduating with a business degree, I secured a position at Marshall Marketing, quickly rising to become one of their youngest executives. My life settled into a comfortable routine of client meetings, professional development, and occasional dinner dates that went nowhere. Meanwhile, Stephanie floated between jobs, bartending, retail management, yoga instruction, changing careers as often as she changed boyfriends. "You need to live a little, Becca," she'd tell me during our monthly sister brunches. "All work and no play makes for a dull obituary." Then came the Chicago Marketing Conference that changed everything. Standing by the coffee station during a networking break, I locked eyes with Nathan Wilson, a digital strategy director from a partner agency. He was tall, with kind brown eyes and an easy laugh. He approached me with 2 coffees. "I noticed you take yours black," he said, handing me a cup. "I'm Nathan. Your presentation on consumer engagement was brilliant." Unlike my previous dates, conversations with Nathan flowed effortlessly. We shared similar ambitions and values, yet complemented each other's differences. Where I was structured and analytical, he was creative and intuitive. Our first date stretched from dinner to a midnight walk along Lake Michigan, where he admitted he'd been working up the courage to talk to me all day. "There's something about you," he'd said. "You're different from anyone I've ever met." 6 months later, I introduced Nathan to my family over Thanksgiving dinner. My parents welcomed him immediately, almost too enthusiastically. Dad pulled out his expensive whiskey, and Mom showed him my embarrassing childhood photos without the usual new boyfriend probation period. Stephanie arrived late, making her typical dramatic entrance in a tight red dress, despite our family's tradition of casual holiday attire. When she spotted Nathan, something flickered across her face, a look I'd seen before when we were teenagers, and I received the lead in a school play she wanted. But the expression vanished so quickly I convinced myself I'd imagined it. "So, you're the famous Nathan," she said, kissing his cheek a beat too long. "Rebecca's been hiding you from us." Throughout dinner, Stephanie directed most of her questions and comments toward Nathan. She laughed too loudly at his jokes, touched his arm when speaking to him, and managed to mention her recent breakup multiple times. I noticed these behaviors, but dismissed them as Stephanie being her typical attention-seeking self. Nathan and I continued building our relationship. His software development firm offered him a promotion that would relocate him to Michigan, conveniently closer to me. We found an apartment midway between our offices, adopted a golden retriever named Cooper, and settled into domestic bliss. 2 years after we met, during a surprise weekend trip to Mackinac Island, Nathan proposed at sunset with a vintage oval diamond ring that had belonged to his grandmother. "You're everything I never knew I needed," he said, kneeling on one knee. Will you marry me, Rebecca? Wedding planning began immediately. We selected June 15th at Silver Lake Lodge, a rustic, elegant venue with panoramic water views, when I called Stephanie to ask her to be my maid of honor. She screamed with such excitement I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Of course, I've been waiting for you to ask, she gushed. I've already started browsing bridesmaid dresses online. Her enthusiasm struck me as odd, considering she'd previously mocked traditional weddings, but I welcomed her support. Little did I know, this decision would set in motion events that would change the course of my life forever. Wedding planning brought out a side of Stephanie I'd never seen before. My typically non-committal sister suddenly had opinions about everything, from invitation fonts to napkin colors. She volunteered to accompany me to every vendor meeting, dress fitting, and tasting session. While I initially appreciated her enthusiasm, something felt off about her intense involvement. I'm thinking ivory linens with sage accents, I mentioned during a planning brunch. Nathan would prefer pure white. Stephanie countered confidently. He mentioned loving the clean look when we discussed it. When did you discuss linens with Nathan? I asked, stirring my coffee. Oh, in passing, she replied quickly, changing the subject to centerpieces. These moments of presumed intimacy with my fiancé multiplied. Stephanie seemed to know Nathan's preferences on details I hadn't even discussed with him myself. When I mentioned this to my mother, she dismissed my concerns. Your sister's finally showing some responsibility. Don't discourage her. She's probably just trying to make things perfect for you. 3 months before the wedding, I began noticing Stephanie constantly checking her phone during our planning sessions, smiling secretly at text messages. Whenever I asked who was texting, she'd vaguely mention a friend or work stuff. Around the same time, Nathan started having unexpected, client emergencies that required evening meetings. The red flags culminated one Tuesday afternoon when I came home early with a migraine. Opening our apartment door, I heard Stephanie's distinctive laugh from the kitchen. I found her perched on our counter, wine glass in hand, while Nathan leaned against the refrigerator, also drinking wine. They jumped apart when they saw me. Becca, you're home early, Nathan said, his voice slightly higher than normal. I brought over some flower samples, Stephanie explained, gesturing to a small envelope on the table that looked suspiciously untouched. Nathan was just helping me decide since you weren't answering your phone. My phone never rang, I said, pulling it from my purse to show no missed calls. Their faces fell. The air in the kitchen grew thick with unspoken tension. That night, I couldn't sleep. My gut screamed betrayal. The next morning, I contacted Jackson Investigations. Within 3 weeks, the evidence became impossible to ignore. Secret meetings, unexplained absences, the way they both knew details they shouldn't. Yesterday, I received the final report with timestamped photos, location data, and witness statements confirming their affair. Back at the wedding reception, as the gasps rippled through the room, Nathan's face drained of all remaining color. My sister and my fiancé, the two people I trusted most, I continued, my voice steady, so I did what any reasonable woman would do. I hired a private investigator. I gestured to my bridesmaid, Amanda, who approached with a manila envelope. From it, I withdrew several photographs showing Nathan and Stephanie entering hotel rooms, sharing intimate dinners, and kissing in his car. I didn't display these to the guests, but made sure Nathan and Stephanie saw them clearly. What you don't know, Stephanie, I said, turning to my sister, is that I never actually filed our marriage license. Now it was Nathan's turn to look shocked. What are you talking about? We signed it yesterday. We signed a document that looked like a marriage license, I clarified. The actual license is still sitting on my lawyer's desk, unsigned. Legally, Nathan, we are not married. I reached into the envelope again and pulled out another document. This is an annulment form stating that the marriage was never consummated. I've already signed it. All it needs is your signature, and this entire charade disappears legally. Nathan's shock morphed into anger. You tricked me? How could you? How could I? My laugh held no humor. That's rich coming from the man who's been sleeping with my sister for 8 months. Stephanie finally found her voice. You knew this whole time? You knew, then why go through with the wedding? Because you both needed to experience what real betrayal feels like, I replied simply. You wanted to humiliate me today, Stephanie. You timed your announcement for maximum damage, but I refused to give you that power. I turned to address our stunned guests. I apologize for involving you all in this deception. The truth is, I discovered their affair and planned this moment to reclaim my dignity. While there won't be a legal marriage to celebrate, I've paid for this reception, and I intend to enjoy it as a celebration of my liberation rather than my wedding. My father stood then, coming to stand beside me. Anyone who wishes to stay and support Rebecca is welcome. Anyone uncomfortable with the situation is free to leave with our understanding. Nathan's parents approached, his mother's eyes filled with tears. Rebecca, we had no idea. We're so sorry. Don't apologize for him, I said gently. This isn't your fault. Stephanie attempted to speak again, stepping forward. It wasn't just an affair. We fell in love, you need to understand. Actually, I don't need to understand anything, I interrupted. What I need is for you to leave. You're fired as my sister and my maid of honor. The wedding coordinator, who had been watching in horror, whispered something to the DJ. Suddenly, upbeat music filled the room, breaking the tension slightly. I handed the microphone back and addressed my bridesmaids. I'm going to change out of this dress. Amanda, would you help me? 20 minutes later. I returned to the reception wearing an elegant blue evening dress I'd packed for our honeymoon departure. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. I had literally and figuratively changed my narrative. Many guests had chosen to stay, and they applauded as I entered. Several approached with hugs and words of support. As the reception cautiously resumed, I asked the coordinator to direct Nathan and Stephanie to the small conference room adjacent to the ballroom. It was time for a private conversation. The conference room felt suffocatingly small with the four of us inside. Me, Nathan, Stephanie, and the wedding coordinator, who quickly excused herself after ensuring we had privacy. Nathan paced like a caged animal while Stephanie sat rigidly in a leather chair, makeup streaked from crying. How long have you known? Nathan demanded, his charm replaced by defensive anger. Does it matter? I replied, remaining standing to maintain the psychological advantage. The better question is, how long have you been sleeping with my sister? Their eyes met briefly before Stephanie answered. It started at your engagement party. 8 months. 8 months. While I'd been selecting flower arrangements and writing vows, they had been betraying me in the most intimate way possible. The night we celebrated our engagement, I clarified, remembering how Nathan had disappeared for nearly an hour during the party. Very classy. It wasn't planned, Nathan insisted. We were both drunk talking about you. Actually, one thing led to another. Spare me the details, I interrupted. What I want to know is why. Why my sister Nathan? And Stephanie, why the man I was going to marry? Stephanie's answer revealed everything about her character. You always had everything so easy, Rebecca. The perfect career, the perfect boyfriend. I just wanted something that was meant for you just once. Easy, I laughed incredulously. I worked for everything I have. Nothing was handed to me. That's how you see it, she muttered. Nathan attempted a different approach, his voice softening. Becca, I made a terrible mistake. I do love you. The affair was just physical. It wasn't for me, Stephanie interjected, glaring at him. You said you loved me. You said you were going to leave her after the wedding. Their unified front crumbled as they turned on each other, revealing contradictory promises and plans. Nathan claimed the affair was ending. Stephanie insisted they had discussed a future together. As they argued, a crucial detail emerged. Stephanie had been actively trying to get pregnant as a way to force Nathan's hand. She believed a baby would solidify their future, making it impossible for him to return to me. Nathan, horrified, denied any knowledge of her intentions, claiming she had told him she was on birth control. The room filled with accusations and denials, a pathetic spectacle of two people whose deceit had finally caught up to them. I watched, detached, as their flimsy excuses unraveled. There was no love, only a shared betrayal and a desperate attempt to salvage their individual narratives. My parents' relationship with Stephanie evolved significantly. After initial attempts to maintain equal relationships with both daughters, They eventually acknowledged the fundamental difference between Stephanie's actions and my responses. While they never completely severed ties with her, they established clear boundaries about family gatherings and discussions. "We failed you both in different ways," my father admitted during a difficult conversation. "We enabled Stephanie's worst behaviors by never holding her accountable, and we took your strength for granted, assuming you didn't need the same attention and affirmation." This acknowledgement helped heal wounds I'd carried since childhood, allowing us to build a more authentic relationship. Stephanie and Nathan's relationship imploded spectacularly just 3 months after the wedding. Without the thrill of secrecy and forbidden attraction, they quickly discovered they had little in common beyond their betrayal. According to mutual friends, their breakup involved public screaming matches and social media warfare. Nathan relocated to California for a fresh start, occasionally sending holiday cards with generic messages that I promptly recycled. Stephanie remained in Michigan but moved to a different city, cycling through jobs and relationships with her characteristic instability. Her attempts to reconcile continued, evolving from desperate pleas to more measured approaches. On the second anniversary of the wedding that wasn't, she sent a letter that showed the first genuine signs of growth. "I don't expect forgiveness," she wrote. "What I did was unforgivable, but I want you to know I'm in therapy, trying to understand why I hurt the one person who always supported me. My jealousy and insecurity don't excuse my actions, but they help explain a pattern I'm working to break. I miss my sister, but more importantly, I regret causing you pain." While I appreciated the self-awareness, I maintained firm boundaries. We occasionally exchanged brief texts on birthdays or major holidays, but our relationship would never return to what it had been. Some betrayals permanently alter the landscape of relationships, and this was one of them. The most profound changes occurred within me. Professional success brought satisfaction, but the internal growth meant more. I learned to trust my instincts, to recognize red flags rather than rationalize them away. I discovered the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation, the former being something I could do for my own peace, the latter requiring rebuilt trust that might never be possible. Michael and I developed our relationship deliberately, with open discussions about expectations and boundaries. When he proposed after 18 months of dating, he did so with full awareness of my past. "I know trust doesn't come easily to you anymore," he said, holding a simple but elegant diamond ring. "I'm not asking for blind faith. I'm asking for partnership, building something together day by day, with honesty as our foundation." Standing in my living room, Cooper watching curiously from his bed, I felt none of the reservation that should have accompanied this moment. Instead, a calm certainty settled over me. "Yes," I answered, "but this time we're eloping." We shared a laugh that acknowledged the past without being defined by it. My journey from betrayal to rebuilding taught me that life's worst moments often contain the seeds of transformation. The public humiliation I feared would destroy me instead revealed my resilience. The loss of relationships I thought essential created space for connections that truly nourished me. Most importantly, I learned that genuine strength isn't about preventing cracks in your foundation, but about how you rebuild after the earthquake. The structure you create after devastation can be more authentic and beautiful than what stood before. To those of you watching who have experienced betrayal, remember this: your worth isn't determined by someone else's loyalty. Your story doesn't end with their chapter. You get to write the next pages. And they can be more authentic and powerful than anything that came before. If my story resonated with you, please share in the comments how you've overcome betrayal or rebuilt trust in your own life. Each experience is unique, but the courage to move forward connects us all. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories of resilience and like this video if it gave you hope or perspective. Thank you for witnessing my journey. May it help illuminate your own path forward, whatever challenges you face. Remember, the most beautiful stories often include the darkest chapters, but they don't end there.